Hello again, everyone. For those of you who have just joined us, we are now officially starting creating the ultimate tech brain, how to visualize and integrate everything for smarter IT management and development. My name is Shelley Hayduck, and I'm co-hosting today with Matt Caton. Today's topic is all about basically information optimization with the concept of visual integration, why that's important. And really, what, especially in IT, first of all, you're dealing with a number of applications to support your organization, and the information you have yourself to reference all of these applications is scattered. So it leaves you in a bit of a catch-22 when you need all the information you can get to make the best decisions, to resolve those issues. But unfortunately, the more you have, the harder it is to make sense of it all and integrate it, and likewise for your user community. So what are some of the key challenges that some of our clients in the IT sector face? Well, ownership, there's a convergence when you're dealing with IT. You have different business departments that you're running projects. So where does ownership reside? Who has the ball for this next rollout? That's another challenge. Isolated knowledge and different systems, but not only systems, but people. We deal with a lot of financial services organizations and government organizations where the baby boomers are retiring. So rather than having them, sort of take all that wonderful knowledge with them when they retire, if we can capture it into a system, that just makes everyone's jobs easier. And then, of course, we have dispersed data, and that could be duplicated data and also duplication of efforts. A lot of people will be commissioning studies that the company already did because they didn't know that was in another portal or drive. So bringing all that information together. And then finally, as with any organization, whether you're in an IT department or something else, you have that changing landscape. Can you adapt? Interest rates are probably going up. New governments taking office. Regulations might be changing. You're hiring people. Your clients need new features. Creating a system that enables you to look at things so you can readily adapt to your business environment in the midst of all this is very important. So we talked a little bit about integrating some of these disparate systems, but on top of the systems itself, the reason visual information integration strategy is so interesting is because most systems are too linear to represent the complexities I just talked about. So you get gargantuan file folder systems, and these file folder systems, now whether we're talking Dropbox or even SharePoint or even Documentum, or if it's just your local shared drive, it's still a hierarchy. You're still drilling up and down that directory. You might be able to create a shortcut or two to another folder, but you can't represent the complexities and contingencies of your network map, of your problems that you need to resolve. So that's where we're coming in, and this can be done for product development or IT management. We have a couple steps that are both process and technology. Of course, we're going to be talking about the technological aspect in doing this with the brain, but this is also a little bit about your own implementation strategy. So as we're working through brains, you can make notes about things you want to do in your own organization to change and evolve. So as you build that brain, you're building a nice network of strategies and a new innovation system for your entire organization. So of course, simplifying access. I think we've covered that. You might start by creating a list. Now, this can be individually for your own computer. It might be the stuff on your computer. If it's for your company, you want to maybe eliminate some duplication of information sources or use existing sources. So making links and connections. One of the interesting things about the brain is we are, in a sense, data agnostic. If you want to create a link to a folder on Dropbox and a link to a folder on Evernote, as Matt will show, and then a link to a shared drive, we can do that. We can leverage all those systems or just URLs to your portals. So you can think of the brain as a remote control to your information. Visualizing information really helps people understand the context for that business environment. And I guess that's something some of you you've watched maybe some of our videos or just starting with the brain will see. So keeping relationships alive by connecting and unlinking and linking thoughts, we'll show you that. And then something that people sometimes forget when they're building a brain is that people are also the cornerstone of this brain. So not just representing and visualizing your files, but hey, I want to put Matt in my brain as an expert on IT management. I want to link him to all the projects he's doing. Or I want to sit down with somebody and really map out their expertise before they retire. Even better, have them download our desktop software and get them, addicted to it so that they create a brain. And when they leave, you have their brain to reference as your system. So that's one way. And of course, if you're working on Team Brain or you're just the author of a brain that you're sharing, you certainly want to incorporate that feedback and be very responsive, because today we're not just talking about building a single brain for your desktop, although of course, a lot of you are doing that. We're talking about Team Brain, sharing the brain. We also have Team Brain Server. I mean, these information architecture principles will apply to whether you're using desktop, our cloud, or a server product. But most people in the IT space aren't just creating a brain for themselves. They're minimally creating a brain that people are accessing in read-only mode, or they're emailing it to people, but more than likely you'll be using it in a team brain capacity where you're actually, each of you are working on different areas and you're sharing your knowledge. So in that sense, you want to keep it dynamic, and that's my next step. So if you are just an IT manager by yourself, that's fine, but my next recommendation to you would be to keep it dynamic. Either get it, at least minimally, get the input from users of the brain you're creating on your IT organization, but secondly, enabling that collaboration is a second part of the power of this beyond the visualization. So finally, I hope I've made the case for visualization. We'll continue to do that throughout the session, but why visualize? Well, the way we look at it for the IT space is you can't manage what you can't see. If you don't know about something, you can't take responsibility. And if you can't take responsibility, then you're not in control of your IT organization. So, and then what we find is people, organizations that do build this visual network of their environment, you're going to get fewer errors and less redundant efforts. And obviously, this can result in all kinds of things: better decisions, more productive planning, and ultimately that's going to increase your company's savings, perhaps even your sales, and so forth. So before I get started, I do want to talk a little bit about the uniqueness of IT information. And there's a reason something is called a network map. And we can talk a little bit about the difference of just, an information folder set and a network. A network by nature has many different relationships. So in this case, you can see I've got a network map that has applications, software, vendors, servers, documentation, processes, departments. So many relationships. A lot of technology systems have trouble representing and visualizing that. Of course, the folder system is linear, so you can't really put an idea in one folder and have a network map. Mind mapping, you can do a little bit of that, but even the standard conventional mind maps have trouble making the cross references and having interconnections. So we're quite unique in the ability to literally be a network-oriented interface that helps people visualize their network maps. So we're going to get started and show you a little bit about that. So what you have to I would be remiss if I didn't talk about before we get into visualizing your network map is that we have some great resources in terms of how to get started for IT managers. And so in fact, if I am creating a new brain, I can actually just type in my name here. But what we have here is we actually have an IT management template. So you have to absolutely check that. You can also get to the templates area if I go to File, and I go into Import, and I can also get to Template Brains if I want to import that. So what I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and create a new brain. And I'm going to call this new brain my 2017 IT world. You might want to start with the name of your company. And now I've got select templates, and then it's just going to make it really super easy for you IT managers to get started. We're going to actually do all the heavy lifting here. I'm going to click on this IT management template, hit OK, and I actually have this pre-populated if it takes a second with the GoToMeeting, but it's actually pasting, hundreds of thoughts, 173 links, and we also have a built-in set of information types and tags that are all coming in this brain. So boom, there we go. So that my template has loaded, and if you guys want to go ahead and load that as as we're working together, if we have multitaskers on the phone, you don't have to. You might want to just sit back and relax with a coffee and watch what we're doing. But if you want to go ahead and do that, remember, just go to File, create the name. You can even call it IT Management with the Brain, and then just get this template. So I want to cover this template, give you all a foundation for getting started on your IT management brain, and then we're going to go into some other interesting examples and how-tos of visual information integration. So this particular brain has a lot of different stuff here. So it's based on a number of our client applications. So first of all, every time I click on a thought, it's going to trigger all related pieces of information. So anything below my active thought is a child. So we have an area in this brain for active projects, and active projects are IT implementation. And real quick, Matt, is there? Oh, I thought there's a little bit of buzzing on my phone. Let me know if the users can hear that. If not, I can always call back on my other line.
I think it sounds good.
Okay, great. So here we've got active projects. So you can actually map out all of your projects, user departments. If you are working with human resources, your IT support center, your marketing department, there's an area in this brain for your key user departments and clients. And finally, help desk and user support. And I'm just going to make this brain full screen here and make it a little bigger. I'll maybe float this. Oopsie, I'm going to go ahead and float this brain. So here, you can actually use thoughts for mapping out all the issues in your support. So you can have thoughts for desktop support, network support, reoccurring issues. And again, if I click downward into known issues, I can go ahead and have all my issues mapped. And you can kind of see how that works very nicely. So we actually have what we call knowledge models, which that's a strategy for connecting thoughts as well as creating thought types and thought tags for help desk. So we can talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, current IT assets. This is where you can get into your network map, mapping all your servers, your databases, your applications, and really building it. So again, this is all these great thoughts are in your brain. I'm going to show you how to add to this brain as well as how to delete things. And there's another section here called business strategy and goals. And this just has a little section with a link to Help Desk Institute for those of you that are help desk managers, think HDI. And we also have some just basic websites in here, Wired, Tech Hive, and of course, a thought can be connected to any type of information, whether that be a document. So let's go ahead and get started with this brain. So I'm going to change this. First of all, use the thoughts, and maybe I want to call this Shelley's IT Management, take a little ownership. So I can just rename this thought. And actually, let's make it a little fun, Shelley's IT World. And I just want to start with some real basic stuff so you guys can get a sense of how easy it is. And I can actually even click on that image. And if I want to change this to, any kind of picture, we've got over 1,000 different icons here. So I can just come in here and maybe I want to look at get a technology. I'm going to use, let's say, this computer looking screen. So we've got Shelley's IT World. Now in this particular brain, I may or may not want certain things. So I can actually go ahead and delete certain thoughts, or I can even copy thoughts into another world, into another brain if I want to go ahead and do that. So let me go into active projects. So first of all, I only have one project. I don't want these extra thoughts called IT implementation C and D. So I'm going to right click and just select to forget these thoughts because I don't want them in view. And now instead of IT implementation A, I'm actually going to call this my, I have a VoIP project that I'm working. We're going to go with voice over IP for our next phone. So I'm going to call this my VoIP implementation project. Now, of course, you can create new thoughts from scratch, and I'm going to show you this, show you how to do that too. But I really specifically want everyone on this call who's an IT manager to see if you're just getting started and you're like, wow, this sounds great, but I'm overwhelmed and how to even begin mapping out my department or projects, to know you've got this template, use the template, make your life easier. So anyway, I'm starting on this VoIP project. What we've done here is we've actually created, we have some template thoughts that represent 4 phases that are common to technology implementations. First phase being planning, second phase being requirements gathering, third phase being development and feedback, and production. So with those phases, I can go ahead and maybe I want to do some VoIP research. And instead of calling this technology planning, I'm just going to change this thought name to VoIP research. So I'm actually going to research which phone system is best. So I want to go ahead and I'm going to start creating a thought called benefits of voice over IP. And now this is where the brain starts to become my knowledge base for information. So I'm actually going to go out, select options, and do a search web on the benefits of voice over IP. And you can see right here, I've got some, I need to make a vendors list. So actually I'm getting a little distracted, but that's good. So what I want to include is another thought here for, I'm going to say, VoIP vendors, because actually another great application in and of itself for the brain, and I do this a lot in marketing, is vendor management, listing all your vendors. So, we've got, let me go ahead and we could actually go ahead and, so there's Vonage, Ring Central, 8x8, and actually what I would do is go to each of these vendor sites, to be honest, and create links to their sites if I'm doing research. But you can link any type of URL or path to a thought. So all I have to do is drag and drop. So I'm going to drag and drop this link onto my VoIP vendors thought, and boom, there we go. So I've got this link of these different vendors. But if I want to go ahead and add Vonage into my brain, I can create multiple thoughts. So let me just create a thought for Vonage, and then I'm going to use a semicolon to create multiple thoughts. And then there's another company called Ring Central. And then there is a company called 8x8. So let's just put 8x8 in the brain. Again, using the semicolon to create multiple thoughts. And fast forwarding, because what I usually do is I'd go to each vendor site and then drag and drop their web page. So, I can do that, and I can go ahead, and so here they're actually asking me to get pricing. I'm actually going to go to the main section of 8x8's website. So this is 8x8, they're a VoIP vendor. So I'm going to go to their area, and I'm simply going to go ahead and drag and drop their link on their page. And, really what I'd start to do is I'd go into each vendor site, and they might have some unique features, or maybe there's a sales rep I'm working with. So in the notes area, I'd have my sales rep number, maybe details on their pricing packages. All happening in the brain. So this is my vendors area, and let's move this over so everyone can see, and I can continue. Now, one of the things that's interesting about the brain is you can not only map things out, but we have thought tags and thought types. So for instance, a thought type, these are all built into the template you could take advantage of. So we've got thought types for help desk, issue, solution, support, topic. Just make this a little bigger so you guys can see more of the thought types. And of course, I can click on any of these thought types So for instance, we've got thought types for projects. So this is my VoIP project. Rather than having it as a step, I'm going to right click on it and use a thought type for this as a type of project. So this project, if you go into your thought types that are built in with this template, we have green lighted, pending, hot project, stalled project. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and call this a pending project. So I've typed that pending project. Now in this case, it's keeping the icon that I've built, but it's typed as a pending project. And then under vendors, VoIP vendors, I'm actually going to create a new, I'm going to type this as a hot project, because this is a project of itself, and there's been a lot of contention as to which vendor we're using. So you can see that I've created some thought types here. Now I'm going to continue to just add some information in this brain so you can see. So let me go ahead, and under this first phase of my research, I'm going to go ahead and go back to just reading a little bit more articles on some of the risks potentially of VoIP. So let me actually go ahead and grab, just do a quick Google search here for VoIP risks and see what pops up. Well, there's a nice article here on how much we should be paying. So you see, and this is the cool thing, even if you get distracted with an interesting web link, you can put it away and come back to it. So this is another site that compares prices. So this is called an expert market that's going to shop all these guys. So I'm going to put this with all my other vendors. And you know what, I can actually make a thought type for a vendor in this. I thought we had a built-in one, but I'll go ahead and create a new thought type. I'm just going to right click on this icon and select a new type, and I'm going to call this new type vendor. So we know that we have, or let's just say tech provider, we'll call this. That's a third party. I want a thought for tech provider, so I'm going to hit OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create this thought type, give it a icon, so they all have the same icon, and I'm just going to keep this icon very basic. So this tech provider will have just a nice blue dot or green dot, and I'm also going to change the color of the tech provider thought type to green, maybe use a darker green here. So now you can see I can actually thought type all my vendors as tech providers. So I'm going to go ahead and control click on 8x8, Ring Central, and Vonage. And I've got them in my selection box. Again, I'm just holding down control click on my PC to do that. And I'm going to right click. And now what I want to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and add a thought type. So let me go ahead and set the thought type to tech provider. And so now all these thoughts are appearing. So I've got my research. This is just a vendor that actually, or a broker that will broker these guys, but these are actually the technical, the tech providers. And I can actually change the view to arrange thoughts rather than by name, by type. So I've got all my tech providers here. I've got my other things, and I might want to add a research, just some research on actually further up here on technology risks. And add that to my brain. Now, integrating existing information is just as easy as I'm, doing my IT projects. I can simply drag and drop different documents. I've got this folder here. I've got a folder on VoIP. I can do a couple things. If I just want to go back to that folder, and I'll just go one level up and drag that folder, and I can create a shortcut to my VoIP research. So let me go ahead and drag and drop that And that creates a shortcut. And actually, I've decided I want it up at this level. So I just moved it up. So under VoIP implementation, I've got my research, actually right under research, that's where that goes. So I've got all my vendors. I've got going to do some research on the benefits as well as the risks, and I've got a folder of information. So that creates a shortcut. That's one way to integrate a folder. The other thing that I can do is I can actually import a full folder area here. So let me go ahead and I'm just going to actually go ahead and right click to forget this. I'm actually going to delete this. So I'm going to control click and select that file and delete that. And now what I can do is I can go to import. And let's say at the top of my brain here in Shelly's IT world, I actually want to import this full IT management folder. What I can do is I can go up to File, and I'm going to go ahead and select Import. And in this case, I can do all kinds of interesting things, but I'm going to select this folder. And I want to go to my desktop, and I want to grab this IT management folder, and I want to get it right into this brain. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now what it's doing is actually importing all 5 directories and so forth. And there I have a full mapping of this is actually all my thoughts. So this is interesting to me too, because maybe I want to get rid of some of the other stuff that I don't need. You know, maybe I just want to use this IT area and I want to delete this section on, you know, business strategy. Maybe I don't want all this stuff. So I'm going to clean this brain up now by just control clicking on these thoughts. And then over here, releasing my mouse button. And again, I'm going to control click on this and just delete this whole section because I don't need this. This is very interesting. So now I'm going to come over here and right click and I'm going to hit to forget this selection. And what that does is that selection is gone. It's no longer there. And the brain offers a 2-tiered deleting system where you can go ahead and forget thoughts. And then if I want to see everything, this is like my recycle bin. I can actually remember a certain thought. This is all that area that I deleted. Or I can actually come in here, select them all, and actually just completely delete them. So first of all, you can forget, then you can delete. So I'll just do that. So now this VoIP section where I've got the 3 documents, I want to link this to my VoIP research. So I'm just going to go ahead and start typing in VoIP, and of course my VoIP research thought appears. I'm going to select that and go ahead and do that. And I want to call this thought now. I don't just want to call it VoIP. You might need to, I'm going to call this VoIP documentation, because I've got different documents there. And that's also, I don't need it now linked to my IT management area because I just want it under my my VoIP area. So let's just come over here and unlink. There we go. So you can see now in my VoIP research section, or even documentation, that might just be for general documentation. So I might want to put that up here. And, you know, I might decide that I don't need to do requirements gathering, so I'm going to forget that thought. Development and feedback now is not step number 3. It's just an area I want to have. So I'm just going to have that as a thought. And then finally, production and rollout, I'm going to get rid of the number there. So you can see the way I took this section and sort of made it my own project. I'm also going to right click to go ahead and create a pin. So this project, regardless of where I am, appears there very nicely. Now, the other section that's really interesting for help desk users is the thought types of reoccurring issue. So if I have known issues for my software, I can come in and write them in here. So let's say I'm having an install problem. I'm going to create that thought, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to type it as an issue. So I'm going to go into this brain and select issue and hit OK. So now I'm building a knowledge base of all my known issues. So we might have an install problem. Maybe there is a UI bug, and I'm just making things up here. And then another issue might be a screen freeze. So you can go ahead and add all your key issues in your brain. And again, I'm going to go ahead and use the thought type that's built in, which is issue, and hit OK. And now I've got this whole area in my brain for issues. And now what I can do, if there's an install problem, I can actually take notes right in the notes area here of how to solve this. Or if there are multiple steps, we actually have another thought type for solution. So I'll just say install solution. And maybe it's a set of files. So I can go back up to type, and I can go ahead and get that thought type on solution. Let's go, oopsie, let me go ahead and do that. Well, in this case, I typed it as a new release, and that's what we need to do for that install problem. But you can see how nicely things can map out using the brain. And then I want to go into a couple more examples. I think you've kind of got the gist of how to create this brain. The next step here is, of course, if I want to take this brain and I want to go ahead and synchronize it or upload it to the cloud, I can go ahead and do that as well. But we're going to let Matt cover that. And I'm going to go ahead and go into another example, which is our network map. So we talked a little bit about the many-to-many relationships that can be visualized in the brain. And I'm just going to make this full screen and move my control panel here. Another application of the brain is to use the associative connections of the brain to go ahead and map the network. So what I can do is actually look at this brain in standard mode. But if I want to go ahead and view, and I want to just go ahead and in normal mode, change the view to outline, I can go ahead and do that. And now I've got more of a linear way of looking at information, and I can expand and collapse different branches. Now, right now, we're actually presenting in a very low resolution, just because we want the GoToMeeting to keep up with all the dynamic animation. But you can see how nice this is. So this enables me to have a complete overview of my databases, my applications, and so on and so forth. And I can kind of see how everything fits together. This is kind of a little bit more of a linear view here. This particular brain is not a template, but it is just a generic example of a network map. We are happy to go ahead and send this to any of you. We also have people visualize their databases of this dynamically. But in this case, you can just create sort of a static mapping of all your IT assets. And I'm just doing this in outline view because I know people like to see a little bit more. I can go ahead and go back to view, go back to normal mode. And of course, I can go ahead and change this view. If I want to go ahead even in normal mode and just hit the plus sign here, so rather than going up to view right below view, that shows my distance thought. So maybe I just want to see sort of one level deeper. So I'm clicking on my applications here, and so I can kind of see under my financial apps, I've got SAP Financials and Invest and reporting performance apps. I've got some other stuff happening, and likewise for CRM. So that's turning on your distant thoughts. A lot of people like to do that when they're reviewing their applications. And of course, I can get rid of that just by collapsing that. And that's just in our normal view. And so I can get to views this way. If I want to just see that extra level, I just hit this plus when I'm in normal view. And then of course, I can go to, we showed you outline view. Now I want to go to a new expanded view, and you can see how interesting this is. This is a total network map. What this does is it lets you, actually I'm going to go ahead and collapse the views and go back to normal first so you can see the difference here. So this is our standard normal view. I'm just going to go to the top of this brain, and now I'm going to go to new expanded. So now what I can do, and it's easier if you kind of start at the top, is I can spread things out and kind of lay them out where it most makes sense for me. So if I just want to focus on applications and map that out, and I'm kind of moving the brain around, this is contingency mapping at its finest, because I can see how things fit together, who, do disaster planning, if we've got failed services, if, for instance, Bugzilla fails, who does it affect? What user community is it affecting? Or if I want to map out, expand my user communities and, really hone in on for instance, human resources. What are they working on? Well, I see that they are working on MailFind, which is a communications app, and that's in. I want to click on communications app so I can see, where that's hosted and where that resides and and how that fits together. So I can actually create a view of all my applications that makes sense for me, and then I can actually save that view as well. So if I go up to options, and I'm going to hit save expanded views, I'm just going to call this my communications app view, and hit OK. And I might have a number of saved views as well. So if I go to view and I want to load an expanded view, I have the communications view. I also did another view that painted a scenario of, hopefully this doesn't happen. If Los Angeles has an earthquake, how are my applications affected that are hosted in LA? So let me click on that view. And that view is honing in on the servers that are in Los Angeles and what that would affect. And in fact, that affects my Remedy database and the Remedy application, which affects our IT support center. So you can see how interesting this becomes from a network mapping perspective to visualize. And then finally, before I pass presenter over to Matt, I've got one more brain that I want to show you, and that is our engineering example brain. This is more for visual product development. Let's just go to normal mode here. And one thing that I really love are the pins. You can move really quickly to different areas. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about is not only attaching documents to thoughts. And I don't even know if I showed how to add a document, so let me go ahead and do that right now, but how you can add icons. So the nice thing about this is you can have these really cool zoomable icons on thoughts that actually help you design a product or a screen grab of an issue. So for instance, this engineering company is designing a new UI for their page, so they can attach mock-ups, and here there's a picture of the tabs interfaces. Likewise, if I go into, there's an area on development languages. There's actually a thought here for debugging expression trees, and this is getting a little bit more into programming, where we actually have the text visualizer code as a screenshot, and then in the notes area here, we have the instructions or code samples for how to do specific things. So that's really interesting as well. Now let me show you, let me go back to this UI console, because first of all, I want to add an attachment. Maybe I want to do a write-up on the best UI for my page. So all I have to do is right click on that thought, and I can select to add. Let's do a Word document. And I can start my write-up on my, my user interface that I'm working on and what it's going to do. I'm going to hit save. That's going to go ahead and save back into the brain. So I've got that. But beyond that, and let me just go ahead and auto-hide this to the right, I've got some documentation that I want to drag and drop in. So let me go ahead and just move this binder. Maybe it is in my IT new projects. No, let's just grab this IT resources planning thought for this brain. So this particular page is going to require a certain number of IT resources. So let me take this document and drag and drop this under this particular project. And what that does is that creates a shortcut to where that lives in my folder system. If I'm synchronizing, I definitely want to make that file internal. So I'm going to actually right click, and I can select to copy or move that file. In this case, I'm going to move the file into the brain. So now I've got some documents on this product design effort that I'm doing. And then likewise, I can go into other areas of the brain and add relevant information. I can actually even go ahead and copy documents. So if I'm in my database section, for instance, and I've got some documents on backup guidelines for our databases as well as data migration, I'm just going to go ahead and control click. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and copy these two documents, and I'm going to go ahead and paste them in my databases section here. So you can see how interesting this becomes. And then, of course, finally, what I wanted to show you is how to go ahead and grab a screenshot. So let's say in my database section, I want to do a menu. I'm going to create a thought called database menus. And in this case, I actually want to reference the Windows menu that they have. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to right click here, and I'm going to select to capture icon thought. And now I'm going to screenshot this area of the menu of my Windows system just for reference. So, and again, in this case, I'm obviously simulating it would be your own product or what have you. And I'll add that. So there you go. And so now I've got a screenshot of these menus as a reference for database menu, let's say design. And I can do this for all kinds of things. So for instance, if I go back to my thought on my new UI, if I want to grab information on even, let's say, inspiring websites. I can go do that. And so let me just go ahead and go to, let's go to Nike.com. They always have some interesting website. Let's go to Europe Nike real quick. Oh, probably won't let me go there. Okay, so anyway, so let's say there's something that I like on this page. I can go ahead and grab an image. I can copy or paste this just by if it was an image. But the other thing I can do is I can screen grab images. So let me just go ahead and use this tool as well. And I'm going to go ahead and capture the thought icon. And I'm going to just grab a picture of these running shoes and paste that there. So that's another way to add images. And of course, if I do an image search, let me just go back to Google here, and let's just say icons and images. I can also just copy and paste. So if I just wanted to copy an image, I'm going to copy this icon and just paste it on a thought. Maybe I want to just paste it on my mock-up thought and select to paste icon this time. I can get an image this way as well. So there's many ways of doing it. You can use the grab it tool to grab things from a page, or you can actually just go ahead and copy images from the web also. And I think, I've covered a lot of ground, and Matt has even more ground to cover. So Matt, unless there's any questions, I'm going to pass presenter over to you now.
Great, thanks, Shelley. And I really like the example that you shared that had the all of the different servers and their location and who was relying on those servers and the applications running on those servers, where they're located. That's a great example of how to use the brain for IT management. And I'm going to expand on that just a little bit. What I'd like to do in the brain that I have open, I've got a sample brain open called Scout Tech Systems. And this has much the same layout as the earlier sample brains that you shared with us. But I'm specifically going to go in and attach some different types of content into the thoughts in my brain. Now, so often, if you're in the IT department, maybe you share all of your files on a network drive somewhere. You've got everything on the Z drive that everyone in your department has access to. But Tracy over in accounting is going to send you something from her Dropbox account. And Bill from marketing likes to put everything into Evernote and send links from there, or send you a tweet. There's so many disparate information sources to keep track of. You may not even have accounts in all those different types of online file sharing services, but you're getting links, you're receiving them via email and chat messages, and it can be really, really difficult to keep track of, but it's incredibly easy to keep track of in the brain. So again, I've got another brain sample open now, and I'm going to go ahead and click down through. I can go directly to all my applications, my database servers and distributors, etc. I'm actually going to go down into applications, and I'll check out my infrastructure, and I'll go into IT development. So these are all the current focuses that I have in the IT development category. And of course, I can click on any one of these to find more information. I am focused on this web trends as well as, let me come back, I can see Web Trends runs on Optics 1, and it's connected over to a database. So again, I've got that really nice visualization of how this application actually fits into my environment. If I need passwords, access codes, information about the people that are working on this account, it's all going to be in one place. And here's my Web Scout importer, an application. You can see I've got a nice little pin to it up above that I could have clicked on to navigate to this thought. But I just wanted to show you a little bit of the structure of this brain. It falls under IT development. It also falls under International 05. That's an internal server that we have here in the office. I can see all the other applications and databases running on that server. If this server goes down, I know who's affected. I know what applications are infected. I know who to talk to. And of course, I've got all their contact information down below. One place to go to manage and handle this critical emergency going on within the organization. But I want to share with you bringing in some different applications and different ways that I use them and access them in the brain. So first, let's bring in some new content. Now, Shelley showed us earlier, we can drag and drop right into the brain. It's a very simple process. You can also change your default. When Shelley did a drag and drop, it created a shortcut. That's the default in the brain. But if you always want to move content into the brain, you're committed to keeping your information in the brain, you can actually change your default. And on a Windows machine, I go up to Options, down into Preferences, and on my UI tab, there's an option for drag and drop files. Instead of linking them directly into the brain, I can move them directly into the brain. So you can really customize the brain to fit your environment, and so it behaves the way you want it to. So that's one option that you can play with. I'm actually going to start bringing some content in, again, from those disparate information sources. And let's start with Outlook. We've got a very unique relationship with Outlook. And anytime we drag and drop an Outlook item into the brain, not only do you get a link back to that Outlook message, but you get an HTML rendering of the content of that message down in your notes section. It's the only application that we do that with. And we've noticed that, so many people receive things for Outlook. I have my Outlook open ahead of time because it actually takes a while to load up, and then it's going to go through the whole send and receive process. So to get to the actual email and find it in Outlook can be time consuming, it can be difficult. All the most important Outlook items, if I get something, I'm going to drag and drop it into the brain. Now, of course, we can copy and paste into the notes of the brain. That's a simple process. But if I want the whole email, and let's say I scroll down, I had one picked out earlier, I really like the layout of an Apple email that I saw. There it is. So here's this Apple message. And we are in the process of developing this Web Scout importer. We're going to be sending out some emails to our clients just as an announcement. I'm doing a little bit of design research, so I'll create a new thought in here for web blast or email blast. So I'll create a specific category where I'll be collecting all of my graphics and research for this particular project. And once again, I simply drag and drop right into the brain. Now from Outlook, I'll just grab the message, drag it into the brain, and it's actually going to name the thought that was created in the brain with the message of the email. That's not what concerns me. I'm really most interested in the layout of that message and sharing that with my design team. But again, if I just really like the big bold graphics, I can click on this thought, and you can see it actually populated the notes section of my brain. There's all the different graphics. Really nice, soft colors, interesting people shots, big graphics, all of my, if I scroll through, I can give this a little more screen real estate. All of the links are there as well. Now, sometimes it tries to put things into the different tables and cells that the email message has. So again, it's just an easy HTML rendering of that content. But instead of having to open up my email and go through that process, if I just want to grab a quick a bit of text out of there, or just review one of the images, see the images they use, why can't we do that? I can just review that right there in the notes section. So really kind of a special relationship that we have with the Outlook application. I'm going to drag a few more items in, and so many times today, these days, like I said, you're receiving information from Dropbox or people's Google Drive links, etc. And those can be kept track of in the brain as well. So let's say I'm still in my design research and someone sends me a link, or maybe I've got a link in my Google Drive. I think I have Google Drive open. There it is. There's Dropbox. Dropbox and Google Drive, a lot of these online file storage and sharing resources, they work in much the same way. Everything has a unique URL, and if you can capture that URL, you can easily make a link in the brain. And I'm going to be sharing my brain a little bit later in my demo today. I want to point out that just because you've got links to items in your Dropbox, in your Google Drive, if you share your brain with other users, that doesn't necessarily mean they have access to your Google Drive. They may have the link that points them to that specific file, and it's up to you to protect that file. If you can't get to that file without a password, then they won't be able to either, even if they have access to your brain. And that should make sense to you that obviously it's up to you whether you decide to share files and items in your Google Drive or your Dropbox, if you want to share them publicly, or just grab a link without sharing and drop it into the brain so you can get to it with your password, but others wouldn't be able to. So again, that's your choice. And I'm going to go down and find a document that I'm working on here in my Google Drive. I've got a project outline that I want to keep track of, or a project overview. I'm just going to right click and I'm going to select Get Shareable Link. And that's really what you need to look for in all of these online resources, is the share button or the link button. So there it is. That's my link I want. I'm going to copy that, and right in the brain, I'll right click and paste web link. I can also paste that over an existing thought somewhere. I pasted it so it created a new thought. It's called Project Overview. That's the document name. And when I click to launch that attachment, I'm actually already logged in, so it goes directly to my project overview document, not to my Google Drive, but to the specific document that I copied. And the same is true. Let me just jump in really quickly to my Dropbox. I'll scroll down, and here's my materials research. There it is right there, share. So I can click on share and copy the link. That's it. So that's copied onto my clipboard, and I right click, paste web link, materials research, right to that specific file in Dropbox. So one other one that we hear about from time to time is Evernote. Evernote, once again, a great way to keep local copies of different information sources as well as access to them online, but it's still just a very linear list. You know, I've got no way of seeing all the different relationships that my to-do list has with other things going on with my project unless I search and find them in this long scrolling list here in Evernote. So once again, I'm just going to right click and copy the note link. So it's copied on my clipboard. I right click in the brain, paste, and Evernote is a little funky. Sometimes it just names the thought welcome back. I'm not sure exactly why it does that. Probably because I'm not logged in online. This is going to be the online link. I can just rename this thought really quickly. To-do list. So quick access to all those disparate information sources. I wanted to share one more feature with you as well. I have in this area of my brain, I've got access for my Web Scout importer. I've limited access, so I can reboot the service that's running for this application. I can reboot the service at any time, but I've got some very detailed instructions on that process. Maybe I've got it in the top of my head. I know how to do it without writing down the instructions, but if I share this brain with someone else, they're going to need to know how to reboot the servers as well, or access all of the passwords. And so notice I've got some notes down below. Follow reboot instructions on the putty thought. And of course, I can click on that. I have a link in my note that takes me directly to another thought, which was also linked to Web Scout importer. So here's putty, and here are my instructions down below. These are instructions that, to be honest with you, I would never remember off the top of my head. I need to archive this information, get it out of my organic brain and into my digital brain, because I'm only restarting the server maybe once, twice a year at most. And as you can see, there's several steps to go through, and you actually end up going into a command line process and typing vol, web scout, server scripts, restart, etc. I'm never going to remember that string of code to restart that. So into my brain it goes, and when this server goes down, maybe we get the call from someone saying web scout is down, or the SQL web database was restarted, therefore we need to go through and restart other services that are connected to that server. Okay, so we need to go into PuTTY, and I'll double click. I've got a link to the exe file for PuTTY, and this is really, really great for IT specialists. Quite often we're grabbing bits of code or opening applications. I can open the PuTTY application right from the brain. I don't have to navigate or do a search on my C drive or anything like that. Here it is, and I start following the links, or start following the process. So first thing I do is I need to send out a text. Bill and Brandon have access to this as well. We don't need two people restarting the same service at the same time. So step one is to send a text, let everyone know that I'm taking care of the job. Step two is do a little bit of research, and if this website isn't running, then we need to connect to the server, restart Tomcat, use the PKP file key, etc., and follow these instructions. So that's what I'll do step by step. It needs the file key that's located in configuration, connection, SSH, auth, etc. So once again, very detailed steps. And then I have to browse, locate the key, and say open, and go back. Next step is under session. So I scroll back up to session. Very detailed information, and it's always archived right here for me, so I can go step by step through this process. I won't restart the server here for you, but you can see all the instructions are right there and archived for me for future use. And of course, if I ever can't find the key, I've got a link over to my key, which is actually uploaded onto this particular thought. So all the resources I need for restarting this service, a very complicated process, archived for me right there into this particular area of the brain. Now that I've gathered all of this information together, I've got a lot more information here to share with the rest of my team in the brain. It's time to do just that, share this brain. So rather than just keeping all of this valuable information to myself, everybody in my IT department is going to have access to it, because some people might even start contributing in other areas. I don't know how to restart the file share and what its responsibilities are, who's working on this particular department or this particular server. Other people are going to contribute to this brain. So what I'm going to do is take it off of my local drive. Everything that you've seen me do here today is on my local machine. I'm going to sync this to webbrain.com. So I'll go ahead and say OK, and let that sync take place. All the changes, new content is all being synced up to the server. So I have cloud access to this brain, and I can share the brain with other users. So let's go ahead and leave the brain running in the local application. And I'm also going to open up the brain online. So here it is, online. And I'll actually just refresh this. I've logged in earlier. And so as you can see, the same brain that you saw running on the desktop application available here in my web browser. So actually, let's go to, I'm going to log out really quickly and go to thebrain.com. So here's www.thebrain.com. Upper right-hand corner, I can click on login, and I can log into my WebBrain account and access online all of the brains that I've synced. And I can go beyond that, just beyond only my access to these brains. Here's my account tab. So there's my Scout Systems brain. That's the brain I'm working in today. Rather than just clicking to launch the brain, which you already saw in the browser, I'm going to go into the settings. So when you sync a brain to the cloud, by default, it is always going to be private. The very first time you sync it, it's private, it's password protected. You saw that I had to log in to my account to access all of my brains. So as long as I know my password and no one else does, I'm fine. The passwords are not even available to administrators of webbrain.com, and we've got documentation on security of webbrain.com available for you if you're interested. Send a note into support@thebrain.com, and we'll send you more about the SSH encryption and everything that's going on with the security with webbrain.com. But I'm going to change this to unlisted, so I can actually start sharing this URL with specific people. If I change it to public, the brain will actually be available on webbrain.com/explore. So any of you can go and visit webbrain.com/explore and see publicly accessible brains. People want to share their brains on their research of politics or food and wine or culture, whatever the case may be. There's some really, really fascinating publicly accessible brains out there. I'm going to keep my brain unlisted, so it won't show up on the Explore page, and I can share the URL with whomever I want. But I want Shelly to actually be an editor of this brain. So I'm going to type her name in as an additional user. I'll type in her email address. And I'll just give the WebBrain a chance. It's actually scanning through anyone that matches this criteria. And a little pop-up list will show up for me so I can actually add Shelly as an editor. So by default, anyone that I type in will start off being a reader, and WebBrain will actually send them an email. Let me just go ahead and type a little more. There we go. So it'll actually send Shelly an email. There she is. And instead of reader, I'm going to switch. This is actually a toggle switch. I'm going to switch over. So Shelly is an editor, and I'll say save down below. And WebBrain will notify me that an email has been sent to Shelly welcoming her to this brain. So there we go. One email has been sent. Shelly's going to receive that email, and she'll see that she's got editor access to that brain. So that means she can actually edit the brain online. So I can open in the web interface, and as you can see, I can click and drag. I can add new thoughts. I can add content in the content area down below or file attachments from the web interface. If I'm on someone else's computer, but away from my own laptop, I can still log into my brains. I can share this brain with Shelly. She can download a local copy and make her own changes and edits. And of course, back in the brain, let me go ahead and cancel that. Back on my desktop, when I resync, I can go into reports. And let me just refresh a report really quickly. Now, I'm the only one that has access to this brain so far. I've just shared it with Shelly. But as Shelly continues or starts using this brain and making edits and modifications, I'll actually see who modified which thought and when. You can see there's edits I have from 2007, 2009, 2016, 2015, et cetera. So the brain is keeping track of all the different modifications going on within this particular brain database. And now that Shelly is also an editor, I'll know what changes Shelly has made as well. So I can actually search those and find if she's assigned a project to me in this brain. I've created this area. I want you to polish it up. And she can actually assign that project to me in the brain. So we're now collaborative in the same brain database. So some really, really great features as far as not only storing all of your information, but sharing your information with the rest of your IT team and collaborating in the same brain database. And Shelly, with that, I think we're over the hour now. So we probably want to see if anyone has any additional questions of features that we want to review.
All right. Well, lots of positive feedback. Somebody, actually, Johnny just commented that your presentation is one of the most useful he's seen so far. So we've definitely covered a lot of ground. And I want to thank all of you for hanging in there with, hopefully we're not in the interest of information overload, not overloading you today, but we know you're IT managers and you like this kind of stuff. So yeah, let's move directly into Q&A. I think we covered a lot of the questions when we were chatting with people through your session and mine, but maybe we'll go ahead and just review some of the questions that started. There was a question that came in from Christian about, can the brain be linked to an ERP system? So let's talk a little bit about, because I know you've got portals, you've got SharePoint, you've got ERP systems. Basically, any information object that has a unique referencing URL, you can link to the brain. So that's why actually interesting. I'm just going to use SharePoint as an example because I'm a little bit more familiar with that. Some parts of SharePoint, like the web parts and so forth that have the unique URL, we can attach and it works, but if it doesn't have a unique URL, you can't. So that's, I don't know what ERP system you're using, Christian, and we don't necessarily need to get into that, but to the extent this ERP system has unique URLs, like for instance, Salesforce, same thing there. You can actually link Salesforce contacts because each of them have the unique URL in the same way you can link a Google message. So that's just a little bit of help there. And we offer free support to all users. So if you have a system that is a little bit beyond your standard file web page, but even that, write in through the website, give us a call. We can even set up a web meeting and show you how to do that. So that was the one question that came across. David was asking about TheBrain server for version 9. Now we do have a server product. So let's just sort of review where we are. Development and the product. I know, and of course you got all, especially again, IT managers, I know you always want the inside track on new releases and so forth. So, I mean, the server product for TheBrain exists right now, but what we find with our enterprise clients is they actually don't want to use beta software. So right now our TheBrain server product works with version 8. Of course, when version 9 is released, it will work with version 9 as well. So for those of you that can't have data on the cloud, you have policies for that, you want to get your own TheBrain, instead of just using TheBrain services, you want to manage your own server, you can do that with our TheBrain server application. So that is an option for you. And in terms of the versions where we are now, there were some questions on that. Where our official version is version 8. So, I would stick with that for your user communities. If you yourself want to go ahead and download and play with version 9, go for it. It's got some really exciting new stuff. It's got tabbed interfaces and, all kinds of great stuff. So go ahead and do that. And just so you know, don't wait to buy. It's almost going to be a free upgrade for anyone for a year, because the beta has taken a little bit longer because we've been adding so many things. But obviously, if you purchase today, version 8, you qualify for the free upgrade. So don't get bogged down in waiting. You want to, get on the software as soon as possible. But so basically where we are is our official release, and that's why we're demoing today, is 8. There is a beta out there of version 9. And of course, once the official release happens, version 9 will work with the TheBrain server technology as well.
That's right. And so for those of you that are now curious about this version 9 we've been discussing, there is a link at the bottom of our homepage. Or you can go directly to thebrain.com/thebrain9. And that will take you to a page where you can download a beta. You can install TheBrain 9 and TheBrain 8 and run both simultaneously. As you can see, I've got both TheBrain 8 running here and another Brain in version 9 that's running over to the left. So 8 and 9 can run simultaneously. You can load up a sample Brain into version 9, or just start creating your own Brain from scratch. You'll see the technology is much the same with many fantastic new features, but the fundamental click and drag to create new thoughts, that content is the same, or features are the same, but there's many more features that streamline the application, make it run faster, smoother, and easier to access all the different types of pieces of information that you're putting into your brain. So we're really excited about the Brain 9. Feel free to check it out. And you can, if you're a little bit hesitant about installing beta software, you can still visit the website and just sort of watch a video preview of all the great new features that are on the way in version 9.
Yeah, because 8 is great too. 9, of course, we're constantly evolving things, and we're looking forward to all your feedback. And then a number of you were asking, if you had more basic questions on how to build a Brain. This Brain, of course, we're gearing to IT managers and developers, so getting all those features in. But join us tomorrow for the Brain 101. It's each week at Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Definitely you can sign up for that. And then, we've made a lot of changes. The other thing I want to talk about that especially IT managers love, on July 27th, so I guess not next week, but the following week, we're doing Brain 202 classes, which is all about editing and evolving a Brain. So you might be in the scenario where you've started a Brain, but sometimes people create these elaborate, beautiful brains, and they're scared to change them. Oh, I don't want to move these thoughts around, that sort of thing. So the Brain 202, it's on our homepage, Editing and Evolving. That's our next webinar. I'll just do a plug for that. And I think with that, we've covered everything. Matt, do you have any final words of wisdom for everyone who's still on the call and talking and thinking about smarter IT management with the Brain?
Sure. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and also remind you that many of the brains that we use today are available to you, whether they're built into the application. The very first brain that Shelley demoed today, you can actually create that brain right there in the brain that you download from our website. So just click on File, New Brain, and select from one of our pre-built templates. And also several of the brains that Shelley demoed are available on our apps page, thebrain.com/apps, APPS. And we'll send everyone on the call today a link to that page so you can go in and possibly even download another sample brain to just play around with on your own or add on to, so that it's the seed for your own brain that you're creating.
All right, great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you on future brain technology events, and good luck in creating your ultimate tech brain. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.